I'm now delighted to be joined by the iconic MMA and UFC legend Chuck Liddell, the Iceman himself, to talk about the last 20 years in mixed martial arts and the UFC and some of the most iconic sort of names and characters and some of the iconic sort of fighters in the last 20 years that have left a mark not only in the industry but have impressed Chuck himself and who have really made their name in folklore and legend status within the industry. And we've asked Chuck to pick out maybe 10 people who he thinks maybe have made an imprint in the last 20 years. And just a general frank discussion on some of the guys and who he thinks has made a lasting legacy for themselves. And if I come to you, Chuck, when you think about the last 20 years in UFC, what's maybe some of the names that come to mind?
Yeah, when you asked me about doing this, I was looking at it, I'm like, it's so hard because you're trying. Are we just talking about top 10 like sheer fighting ability, or are we talking about who's one fun to watch? I guess who I like watching, or who did the most for the sport or did stuff going forward. Or how do you combine that? How do you weight that in your judging? Yeah, I guess we just get started. I mean, I just I don't even know where to start, but some I think it comes up every time everyone asks me, or in the past, he's asked me who my favorite guy to watch fight was, and Anderson Silva. So Anderson Silva was one of my top guys. And then start going from there. I mean, I have, I don't know if we want to start from the bottom up or how, or just some guys I need to mention. I mean, I looked at some of the names like Bosch Rutan and I had some, but that was before. He's kind of before 2000.
Yeah.
I think he was already done. I was even going to throw Frank Shamrock on there just because he made Tito tap the strikes. So, but he was. I think that fight was right before it was 99. So, I wasn't gonna have him in there. So, yeah. That being said, probably Tito's got to be in there. He's a big part of the beginning of 2000s. Not sure where I'll put him. Somewhere at the bottom, probably. Probably. I mean, if we're looking, I got to throw him on the list. I put him at 10.
Yeah.
But then guys are like, man, you got to find a place for Dan Henderson for sure.
Yep.
Love watching that guy fight. I mean, he's a warrior, great guy. Who else? I mean, obviously, a guy like John Jones. I mean, even with all his troubles and he's always going to have that mar being the steroids, but he's a good fighter, man. Great fighter. So that's going to be. I think he's his own worst enemy, but he's doing great. He's got to be on there somewhere. And then, I mean, what else? Who else? We're talking greatest of all time. Give me some help here. We doing guys I like.
How does George St. Pierre's rate to you, Chuck?
Come on, George got to be near the top. George a great fighter and one of the best all time. I mean, I didn't like the style after he got knocked out. That fight, he got caught with that punch. I think he got real conservative in his fighting, but which is not my favorite style to watch. But he still, I mean, he made good guys look bad.
Yeah.
He just didn't do anything to him, and man, he's just impressive stuff that he was able to do. I mean, he's really good at making you fight. And same thing with John Jones. They're really good at making you fight where they want to fight you.
Yeah.
They get a game plan and they make you fight where they want you to fight. So they're able to take you out of where you're good.
And how does Khabib? I mean, he's undefeated. No one's been able to lay a glove on him. They've sort of tried. And how does Khabib? Do you think the challengers haven't been at the same quality for Khabib?
Well, I mean, the guys in that division are tough. I mean, and I really wanted to see him fight Tony. I think Tony was a bad matchup for him, but now we'll see. With Gaethje, is a different fight. But I think Khabib's got to be in your mind. But I don't think I want to see him do a little more first before I'm going to put him in for good. But he's Conor's one of the guys that, if you just talk about what he did for the sport and being a big name for it. I mean, and plus Conor's fun to watch fight. I like watching him fight. He's one of those guys that goes out and he talks a lot of trash, but he backs it up. He comes out to fight. He comes across to try to end you. So he's a lot of fun to watch fight, and it's probably the biggest draw out there. So with that being said, while we're talking about people that are there for that reason, Ronda Rousey was. Yeah. I mean, she responsible for bringing women's MMA forward. And she did a great job. And if we're talking, Amanda Nunes.
You mentioned, Chuck, you mentioned trash talkers there, and you mentioned about Conor McGregor and being able to speak. Another guy that was very good at it was Mike Bisping. He talked an awful lot of smack as well. And how do you rate Mike in terms of his actual fighting ability?
Oh, he was a good fighter. Obviously, he stuck around for a long time fighting with one eye for a long time. That guy's one tough fighter. I think he had a great style. I think one of his downfall was punching power, but I didn't have that explosive punching power to make him more dangerous. I think with that he could have been really hard to beat.
And you mentioned a female wrestler there in Ronda Rousey and what she did for women's, a female MMA fighter in Ronda Rousey and what she did for the sport. But another sort of Peruvian Armenian, Valentina Shevchenko, no one's been able to lay a glove on her, and she is really a tough customer. She goes in, she's ruthless in the ring, and she's a very deadly sort of woman. She can KO you in so many ways.
Oh yeah, she's tough. But like I said, we're trying to. I've kind of brought Ronda up in the ability to bring out. She's one of those people that bring out the. You always have the hardcore fans going to watch the tough fighters. They always like to watch good fighters, and she's one of those people that's able to get outside not only just the casual watchers. She's bringing in people that don't usually watch fights. So you're bringing in new fans. So, and to a division we didn't have before, the female division. So that was one of the things I think really puts her out there as one of the best.
Yeah, and I suppose Chuck, if just other names, Daniel Cormier got defeated recently. Stipe Miocic is the current champion. How do you rate these current era of champions, Cormier and Miocic, for example?
Oh, I think they're both really, really tough guys. They're really great fighters. Cormier has done a lot. I don't know. I have a little thing that Cormier didn't want that another fight with Jones. Mm-hmm. I get it. I understand. He's mad about the BDs, but it's one of those things. Like as a fighter, I think he should have wanted another shot at him. But I get it. And yeah, he's done so much. He's a great fighter, man. But again, just not that kind of bothers me a little.
Yeah, and I suppose Chuck, the bad guy himself, Cael Sonnen, as they called him, and how was Cael in terms of his ability as a performer, and what are your memories of him?
I always thought Cael was one of those guys. He's a good fighter. He was able to perform against a lot of guys, but I think he started running his mouth and being that trash talker because he wasn't an exciting fighter. Yeah. I think he was a throwback to the lay and pray guys, and he never learned how to stop a triangle. So I I think I've gotten that a couple times in his career. But it's just, for me, and I like the guy. He's a great guy, and he's one of those guys. He's on for camera, getting off in the back. He's like, "Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?"
Yeah.
We were at a show one time, and I was up there, and he was out there talking trash about me. And I was in the back talking to his mom, and he came in, "Hey, Chuck, I cheated up if you want to fight," or kind of, and I went on his way. So he's a good dude. I mean, I like the guy, and he's funny, so it's entertaining.
And I suppose another guy from that era, going back to maybe to the early 2000s, Rampage Jackson. I suppose if you look last 20 years, the first decade, the first 10 of them was where Rampage did most of his good work in terms of UFC and mixed martial arts.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Rampage is a good fighter. He's tough. He had my number, and it was what it was. But yeah, he's definitely in the conversation for sure.
And Chuck, in terms of yourself, in terms of your own impact and legacy for the last 20 years, what are the key moments that have stood out for you that you can say, right, I left my mark here and I left my mark there, and in the last 20 years?
I think a lot of it had to do with, I really helped a lot promoting the sport in the beginning, and then I was on the first Ultimate Fighter. Did that, won the title right after, and and I don't know. I don't like talking about myself, so I let other people talk about that. Now, there was Matt Hughes has to be in there. You got BJ Penn.
Yeah.
And I was friends with both those guys, so watching them fight, I mean, I got goosebumps. I get all chills when they play Country Boy Can't Survive for Hughes going out. I was actually fighting the night he beat Trigg the second time, and he just got knocked down, and he picked him up and walks across the ring. I was going crazy in the back room. I was like, you're supposed to be getting ready for your fight. I was watching Matt fight. So Matt's a great dude, good friend of mine, and I love watching him fight. He's in the top 5 for sure. And then, I mean, there's BJ Penn. He's up there too, and him and George St. Pierre. Those three going after each other was always fun.
And I suppose you mentioned Anderson Silva, and you said he was probably one of the guys you loved watching to fight, and he probably entertained you the most. And what was the reason for that Anderson sort of grabs your attention more than any other sort of fighter?
Well, he's one of those fighters. Yeah, he's this devastating power. I mean, he has that two different kinds of power. Like for me, there's that pure power where he hits you anywhere with it and they're gonna hurt you, and there's that timing power that you can run into something like Leona Machida has. He gets people to run into something, boom, out. They catches them. And Anderson Silva is one of those guys that just did both of them really well with everything.
And I suppose, Chuck, we've talked an awful lot about the powerhouses, the heavyweights of the division, but if you mentioned some of the guys probably lower down in terms of weight classes, the likes of Max Holloway, Dustin Poirier, probably the last decade or so, they've sort of made their mark in the last few years. Now, both of them, Max and Dustin, in the last few years had one or two sort of devastating defeats that have probably set them back up.
Yeah, and I like watching both those guys fight. Also, you got to mention Mighty Mouse. I mean, he was untouchable forever, and I actually think he won that last fight against Cejudo. So I was there, and I really thought I didn't know how he lost that fight, but yeah. And speaking of Cejudo, I mean, obviously he needs to do a little more, but but he beat some good guys, and he's there. Israel Adesanya. I mean, he's one of those guys. He hasn't done enough yet, but he'll be in the conversation for sure if he keeps it up.
Yeah, and I suppose a guy that was probably this early parts of 2000. I suppose he had that sort of loss to Conor McGregor, the Cowboy Cerrone, in terms of his ability and.
Cowboy's a tough guy, man. I love watching him fight, and I love his attitude more than anything. Those guys like Jorge Masvidal, wants to fight. Guys out there that really want to get out there and fight. And Cowboy's just one of those guys, man. he's a pure fighter and just a good guy. So I like him. I like the way he fights. I like the way he goes out there. So yeah, he's one of those guys always gonna be I'll watch anytime he's on. You know.
And I suppose, Chuck, just a few more names there to run by you. I suppose the likes of Cain Velasquez and Rashid Evans and those sort of guys, different categories of fighter, I know, but in terms of their sort of contribution to the sport of mixed martial arts.
Well, yeah, I mean, you got to remember Randy too. Randy Couture is one of the guys too. You got to put him in there somewhere.
Randy, yeah.
First 2-weight champ. You know, he's the first guy to do it. And just a tough guy, tough fighter.
Yeah, and I suppose, Chuck, one other thing to bring up to you. We've seen this.
Yeah, Cain. I tried to work with Cain back in the day.
Yeah, I suppose.
You froze. What'd you say? You froze.
Sorry, Chuck. One thing we've seen in the last few years, we've seen a crossover of people come into the industry trying their hand from the wrestling sort of world and fraternity and background. It hasn't really gone too well for him in some cases, but Brock Lesnar did manage to achieve one or two sort of things. But I suppose it's very unfair because at the end of the day, he is a wrestler. He's not really a mixed martial artist.
Yeah, well, he came from a wrestling background, not pro wrestling, but a regular college wrestling background. So he had that wrestling part of the game to start with. And, you know, he's one of those guys, I mean, he was tough, and he could take a punch. Because, I mean, if you saw the Shane Carwin fight, remember that fight?
Yeah.
Him to survive that and keep fighting and finish that, I mean, he was, that was all heart. So, I mean, that was the thing. I mean, my thing with him was he was afraid to get hit. Like, he's one of those guys that he's overly afraid to get hit. He's always over worried about getting hit. So, I mean, that made it real hard for him to stand with anybody that had like a guy like Cain. Yeah, you know, he was at that time was a great thing for the sport. He brought some good promotion to the sport, and he's one of the guys with the crossovers that was great. I mean, you know, the other one, what was a more recent one that, what's his name? I can't think of his name right now.
CM Punk, is it?
Oh my God. I mean, I feel bad for him. He seemed like a nice guy. He's a good dude, but I mean, his camp, those guys did him a disservice telling him he could fight at that level. I mean, those guys train people. They work with people. Okay, I've seen that before with like guys doing privates with stars, and they, hey man, oh yeah, you could do this. You could be professional in this if you want an actor. You could be a professional kickboxer if you want an actor. I see that all the time. But when the guy starts to take it real and is actually pursuing it, you might want to bring him back in. You know, maybe have him fight one of your guys at the lower level guys at the gym so you can see what it's like. You know, because I mean, they just tried to bring in a guy for him to beat, and they couldn't do that. I mean, the second fight was embarrassing. I mean, nothing against the guy that fought him, but the guy didn't even I think the guy had a losing record. They brought in to fight him, and the fight in the UFC at that level kind of bothers me. I mean, I don't mind if you come in and you beat guys and you can compete at this level, great. I got no problem with it. But if they, as long as they bring you in against at least a low level guy at that level, you know, at UFC level, don't bring in someone that's not fighting in the UFC, doesn't belong there to fight someone, a pro wrestler or some athlete or some star. They should, if they're gonna, I don't mind them bringing it in and promoting it. It's great for the sport to get the attention, and sell tickets or whatever. But at the minimum, they have to fight someone on a low level UFC guy, like a guy that's just moved into the UFC, one of those guys that's a 50-50 UFC winner. You know, he wins some, loses some in the UFC. That's the minimum they should fight. Yeah. You know, they should have to fight somebody. If you're going to be on a UFC card, I want to see, or just bring in two of them. You know, if you want to do a spectacle, bring in two pro wrestlers that want to fight, or bring in a wrestler and a boxer that want to do pro wrestling, and a boxer that want to do an MMA fight. You know, neither one of them's never done it. Okay, do that. That's fine. I'm good with that too, because that's just we can section that. Okay, here's the spectacle thing. right here. Here's a spectacle fight, and then now we get back to real fights.
And I suppose, Chuck, lastly, before I let you go, in terms of today's world in 2020, if ChuckLiddell was maybe in his peak now, and you flash you back to, if you were 25 now in 2020, and you were still actively pursuing matches, in terms of styles and techniques, and you look at the opponents that are currently active there today, who would you like to go up against, or who would you like to, maybe 3 guys that would you like to take on, and not mainly for belts or titles, just for the just to try and
I get what you're saying, but all the people mad at me. But anyway, you know, I mean, obviously I want John Jones. I mean, I want to fight him if I was in my prime, and realize, you guys got to realize, like, so many people go, oh, you know this. I was a wrestler. I was a good jiu-jitsu guy. I just like striking more, just so everyone knows I can do everything, and I'm always improving at everything. And when I was fighting, I was always getting better, and always one of the things that in the beginning era was the guys that stayed around a long time were always improving. We were always moving. We were always learning new ways to do things. And you know, back when we started, like, we were trying to figure out how even to train the sport. You know, now guys are starting in mixed martial arts. You don't come from, we were always coming from, like, wrestling, guys coming from wrestling to fight, have to learn MMA, have to learn jiu-jitsu and striking. Yeah. Or you get guys from karate that want to learn wrestling and jiu-jitsu. And then, you know, or any mix of that. But now guys are coming in as mixed martial artists. So it's a big advantage. And, you know, now you got nutritionists and strength coaches and all that stuff, and it's great. And I think the fighters are going to keep getting better and better, and start improving. So I hate doing if I fight that guy, because all people do is get mad. But I mean, I would like a shot at him. I think we would have matched up well, and I think I would have caught him with an overhand right. And I have a longer reach than was listed. Like, so I'll have almost an 80-inch reach, which is reason why you listed at 76 is because John Hackman, my trainer, he's overly concerned about everything. So he didn't want people thinking I had a long reach. He didn't want them knowing I had a long reach. So he listed us at 76 and had him put it down as that. Had me go like this. Like, instead of stretching out, he had me go like that when they measured my reach. So, I mean, it's the reach, I don't think would have been that big a problem. And the way he moves, I think I could have caught him with an overhand, and we would have found out how good a punch he could take.
And I suppose, Chuck, the last 30 seconds, you have fans all over the world. You've probably been all over the world. Lots of people have supported you. And in terms of a message to your Irish fans now for the last 30 seconds, what would you like to say to them who have followed you and have seen some of your matches throughout your career and have bought some of your pay-per-views and in terms like that, and bought some of your merchandise, and maybe young teenage boys that have maybe posters up on your wall here in Ireland?
That's awesome. I'm half Irish, so just so you know. So, thank you guys for all your support over the years, and I hope everyone's doing well. I know everything's okay over there, and thanks for supporting over the years, and I hope to visit you guys again soon out there. I want to come back to Ireland again. I had a great time there last couple of times I went.
Yeah, on that note, ChuckLiddell, an absolute pleasure talking to you this evening. In these troublesome times, we wish you and your loved ones the best of health, the best of good luck in your future endeavours. Stay safe, stay healthy, and hopefully we'll see you promoting the sport you love in our TV screens in the near future, in whatever role that may be. Take care, ChuckLiddell.
Thank you very much, man.
Thank you.